A lot of community haven't made it. A lot of brothers and sisters locked into these disgraceful school systems haven't made it. They don't have health care, child care, on the way to prison industrial complex. They haven't made it. How broad is the we and the we overcome, or is it just, I'll make it? Very, very different. Sorry to go home so long like that.
Oh, no, that was wonderful. You've touched on a number of things, and I'm going to ask this question with some level of trepidation.
Well, that's all right.
Because I'm going to ask it from a baby perspective, the baby perspective of Marxism. And I know, you are a genius and a professor who has been working in this area for quite some time. But you write and teach on issues of Marxism and Christianity. And in your book, Democracy Matters, you talk about the Constantinian Christian versus the prophetic Christian. And for the baby people like me in the room who want to see a little bit of it but don't want to be crushed by it, what does that mean?
No, I hear you. No, it's that, I mean, every religious tradition we know has been traduced and bastardized by elites in order to try to subjugate everyday people. So that every religious tradition has been tied into various forms of domination and subjugation. At the same time, there are prophetic elements, dimensions, and slices of religious traditions that try to be in opposition to the powers that be. Now, Christianity itself, which comes out of prophetic Judaism, was persecuted early on. Jesus ended up on a cross, the very symbol of unarmed truth and unconditional love in the face of catastrophic circumstances, seemingly crushed, but the love bounced back. You see, and that's what attracted Africans to that story, that we have a deep allegiance to unarmed truth that seems impotent in the world. And we know that an unconditional love can sustain us given this uninstitutionalized hatred coming at us called white supremacy that exploits our labor and demeans our sense of who we are and tries to convince us we're less intelligent and less beautiful. But we hold on to this unarmed truth and unconditional love, so we feel like we're being crucified every day, like that first century Palestinian Jew who was crucified on Calvary. And it looks as if he can't bounce back. So black folk been locked into that Saturday after Good Friday. We ain't had Easter yet. True. True. All we've had is each other. And the promise of Easter. The promise of freedom and so forth. But Constantinian Christianity has to do, of course, with Constantine, the emperor of Rome at the time, that takes that underground religion that was persecuted and makes it a state religion, persecutes all other religions, and thereby forces Christianity on the population in order to become a weapon of the empire. And of course, we live in the American empire, where the market way of life, where the obsession with things and commodities and prosperity produces Constantinian Christianity in America. Very market Christianity, prosperity gospel, an obsession with blessings in the form of Lexuses opposed to strength to struggle for justice. When you go into some of these churches now, you got 2 ATMs before you see a cross. But that's what it's about. That's what it's about. You see that the blood at the cross that was once thick to help you transform the folk under American terrorism called U.S. slavery said, wade in the water, right? Wade in the water, God gonna trouble the water. You got to be in trouble to be transformed. If you don't have the courage to be where the crisis is, where the catastrophe is, you will never be changed. But these days, the blood transforms into Kool-Aid, everybody jumping over, dipping in for upward mobility. It's a very different way of talking about spirituality. And this is true for not just Christianity, it's true for religions across the board. Which means then, that when we're talking about how do you sustain the spirit of a people who have been terrorized, who are terrorized, who have been pushed against the wall and yet still bounce back, you're going to have thick stuff. The thin stuff's not going to work. You see, and in a certain sense, this is part of the challenge for young people these days. See, if you get disposable bubblegum music, you're going to get some disposable dispositions toward each other. See, that thin stuff. You see, I ain't got nothing against Soulja Boy and Crack That, but that ain't going to do it. You're going to need some Curtis Mayfield when you're down and out. I mean, that's why they call him the soul stirs, right? That's Sam Cooke, that's Lou Rawls. It stirs your soul so that you have something to sustain you in the catastrophe that you're living in. Whereas so much of music today stimulates your body so that you're ready for the next orgasm. Qualitatively different. Qualitatively different. And of course, there's structures and institutions behind this. The recording industry is so interested in pacifying, distracting, ensuring that the strength and the grace and the dignity of young people is not affirmed and rather keep them locked into narcissistic, materialistic, and individualistic orientation. There's some deep, very deep interest at work here, you see. And that's one of the reasons why I spend so much time with hip-hop community, with trying to say, look, Motown, Philly Sound, Stax, Curtis, Al Green, Aretha, these are not just entertainers, these are freedom fighters. Right. They help you sustain your spirit that ought to be thickened because the battle is getting more intense. And if your armor is real thin with the white supremacist bombardment, you're not going to be able to sustain it. You're going to end up hating yourself and hating others who look like you. You're going to end up putting others down. You're going to end up play hating. You're going to end up demeaning. You see. Because white supremacy operates on the inside of hearts and minds and souls of black folk as well as in institutions, which means you don't need white brothers and sisters around for white supremacy to operate effectively. Then it's on the inside, very deep, sedimented, imbibed, and so forth, you see. And so when we talk about, for me as a Christian, of course, I look at the world through the lens of the cross. That's the choice I make. And what does that mean? That means that I always start with the catastrophic, with the horrendous, with the scandalous, the monstrous. It's almost like Kafka's first line. I woke up in the morning and found myself transformed into a vulgar, vile vermin. That's catastrophic. Kafka had a sense of the catastrophic. He's my Jewish brother on the other side of the pond. In America, they talk about the catastrophic. They talk about what? Indigenous peoples. Talk about slavery, it's talking about women dealing with patriarchy and domestic violence and scars. Talk about gay brothers and lesbian sisters taught to hate themselves. Talk about workers crushed by capitalist elites. It's the catastrophic. It's the view from the bottoms up. It's through the lens of the cross. And that view is always a minority view within the Christian community. Always. Because it takes too much love. Takes too much courage. Who wants to pay the ultimate cost like this brother? Most people are too scared to die like that. I understand it. But I still love him. And I affirm his courage because he also looked at the world through the lens of the cross. Malcolm did in the Islamic tradition. Martin certainly did. He bore the thing from 26 years old till he was shot down like a dog when he was 39. Cross. But, you know, I mean, this American empire right now is just so cross-adverse. So you deny the night side. I mean, you know in the U.S. Constitution, no reference to slavery. Now, see, that's not just a creative tension between principles and practice. That's just lying. That's just hypocrisy. And they think the chickens don't come home to roost. Think you can get away with that. You end up fighting a civil war over an institution not invoked in your Constitution. That level of denial that cuts so deep to think you're innocent, always, already, and yet you got a catastrophic right in your midst, but you try to deodorize it and manicure it and sanitize it and sterilize it in such a way that you think the funk not going to still hunt you down. Come on now, it's just not going to work. Black writers begin with the funk. They begin with the catastrophic. It's true. You remember Ellison's definition of the blues? An autobiographical chronicle of a personal catastrophe expressed lyrically. That's Ellison. Is that right, Brother Eugene? That's right. Professor Redmond, a poet laureate? That's right. But of course, we got to add, not just express lyrically, but cope with style and elegance and dignity. It's like Lester Young with the elegance of earned self-togetherness against the catastrophic circumstances that make sure Billy is part of the conversation, and he's part of Billy's conversation, just as she emerged from her catastrophic circumstances, but has such dignity and grace. You cope lyrically, politically, spiritually, so you still have a smile on your face like grandmama when she's been working in Miss Ann's house for the last 42 years with no pension, but she's a queen on Sunday. Fine in her back. Where does that come from? It doesn't fall out of the sky. It comes out of a history of struggle, of song and word and gesture and deed and family and institution and athletic networks and musical apprenticeship and so forth. That's what sustained us. And it's unclear whether we're going to make it. I'm not an optimist at all. I'm not. Obama said he got audacity and hope. I say, well, what price you willing to pay? See, I know you're willing to die because they keeping track of you. But it's not just a matter of willing to die, but also, are you willing to tell them the truth? Now, as president, he can't tell too much of the truth. It'll scare him to death. But you got to be able to somehow walk that tightrope. You got to walk that tightrope, like the speech the other day. We're going to have a discussion about that speech.
Oh, we are.
We're going to get to that?
We're going to get to that.
Lord. Oh, my dear brother Obama. I mean, I support the brother. I'm a critical supporter of him, you know. But I got allegiance to truth, not just power.
Well,